What's up, guys? My name is Alexis, your host with Praises in the Pod, and I am stoked to have Rebecca Butler here today. We are going to talk about a lot of things, her testimony, and so much more. So we're going to start off in prayer, and then we're going to jump right in. Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for all your many blessings, dear God. Thank you for allowing us to come on here and talk about our experiences and your goodness and what all you have done in our life, Lord. And we just pray that you speak to us and through us, and let this episode glorify you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So we're just going to jump right in, girl. Like, Tell us a little bit about maybe your childhood and growing up and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I was born here in Macon. I was homeschooled until 10th grade, where then I went to CFCA.
Oh,
and
wow.
that was actually where I met Caleb, my husband, and we graduated
y'all started like high school.
We
Wow.
did, and he will be the first to tell you that I dumped him like a sack of potatoes when I got to college.
No.
And I did. And so we were very young and did not, I guess, know what we wanted. And so I did kind of drop him.
Yeah.
But we got back together after. But
this is kind of random, but
yeah.
11th grade is like very late to start at a school, period.
Yes.
So what caused, how did that come about?
Yeah, my mom, she went to school. She has her master's in math. And so she had always, I guess, decided to homeschool. And that was not popular when we were young. I mean, I'm 34. So when we were homeschooled, nobody else was doing it.
Yeah.
And so she decided to homeschool us. And so she homeschooled my sister all the way through, who's older than me. And then for me, I told her, I was like, hey, I kind of I'm a little bit, not bored, it's not the right word, but I was like, I want to experience the things that people experience in school. Like, I wanted to go to prom, and I wanted to do homecoming and that kind of stuff. And so her and my dad talked about it, and they're like, well, we lived in, they still live in Peach County, but we lived in Peach County, so we went and toured Peach County High School, which was a huge shock from homeschooling to Peach County High. And it would have been the same for HOCO or whatever. So we looked at CFCA, and they decided to let me go there. And then my brother actually started there, I think, maybe the next year or 2 years later in 8th grade. And then my mom went back to work.
Oh, wow.
So she kind of homeschooled until it made sense. And so yeah, that's kind of
okay. Cool. So you just were like, I really want to get some experience.
I did. I always wanted to be in the classroom. My grandma taught, and we would go see her classroom and this looks so fun. And my mom's like, you have no idea how good you have it. You're done with school at 12 or 1, and then you get to play all day. And I'm like, yeah, but you see it on TV, and I want to do all this stuff. And so, I mean, and going to CFCA was great. I mean, it was where I met Caleb.
I know, that's what I was about to be like, thank God you went, girl.
I know, and it was great. And now our kids go there.
Yes.
And so, which is really cool.
Which Jackson just had homecoming king.
He was the little homecoming king. Yes, he was so cute. And his little kindergarten. Yeah. So
That's
he's
so
loving it.
Yeah.
And he is Caleb's kid.
Thriving.
Through and through.
Nice.
So, yes.
Okay, so you graduate, you and Caleb kind of split.
Yes. We didn't start dating. We only dated for a couple of months before I went to college. So I went to Valdosta State, and he stayed here, and he was going to do interning for music and that kind of stuff. He didn't plan on going to college. And so I had every intention of staying together, but then we were just very immature. And so, being away from each other, and then kind of me wanting to go hang out with friends in college and him wanting to know what I'm doing all the time, and it just kind of didn't work out. So I graduated from VSU in 2012, and I was like, I'm not moving back to Warner Robins. I'm headed to Atlanta, and I'm going to find a job there, and that's what I'm going to do. But I came back home for a little bit, and I saw Caleb he was playing at Southside. And it had been a while since we had talked or seen each other. And so I texted him, and then from there, it just kind of took off. We just kind of started back up. And it was a little bit of, hurt feelings and unsure if it was going to. But God, in all his wisdom, and brought us back together at the right time for us. And the rest is kind of history.
Dang. So you said that was around, what, 2012?
2012.
That's 2012. So y'all are dating. You moved back here. And then tell us a little bit about your early years of marriage and what that looked like and stuff.
Yeah. So we got married in 2015. And it was, it's pretty smooth sailing. I can't really, they say the first year of marriage is really hard. Ours was pretty chill.
Nice.
Yeah, we were blessed with a house pretty quickly after getting married, and then we decided to have our first son. And we didn't know it was gonna be a boy. We had our first kid, and he's 6 now. And then a little bit later, we decided to have a second. So then we had Rhett, and he is 3.5.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so they are way too cute. And
That seems like a good like age gap too.
Yes,
like
they're like
2.5
years. It's the perfect age
Yeah.
gap. Yeah.
What did you go to school for?
I initially went to school for education and then changed my mind, and now I do. I went to school for public relations, so I do public relations, marketing, social media. Yeah. So
that's cool. I was just thinking, I was like, hang on, wait a minute, like, was it always the plan? Like, you wanted to do the social media marketing aspect?
That wasn't always the plan. My aunt, actually, she owns her own PR firm, so I do a lot of work with her. And so I did an internship with her out in California right out of school.
Nice.
And so, yeah, it was not what I was expecting to do, but what God had planned, and it's been really good.
That's great. And there's just a lot of flexibility, too, especially with the kids and stuff like that. Like, that's been such a blessing.
It has been such a blessing. Yeah, I do all my work from home, which is awesome.
That's great. One of the things that, like, I was just thinking about, I'm like, when did Caleb, like, step into a pastor role?
You know, he just got ordained as pastor. I want to say it was in 2023. It might have been last year.
Oh, okay.
So before
newer.
That, yeah, he got hired onto staff at Southside the year we got married. So pretty much our whole marriage, he's been on staff at Southside. And so, but the pastor role is like ordained as a pastor has been pretty recent.
And then, like, for Caleb, did he always know that he wanted to be a pastor, or was that something he just wanted to be in music, and then it kind of went into worship, and then he's like, you know what, I have this calling on my life? Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, he started with music, and I think mostly he wanted to do like producing, and electric guitar is his first love. Like, he would tell you that.
You can tell when he's on stage and he's playing the electric guitar, he's in it.
It is his first love for sure. So I think that's all he wanted to do music wise was electric guitar, and then he went and interned to learn about producing, and then you know, playing at church has always been a part of his life, and so it was a no-brainer to play at church. And then when the position opened up to be on staff at Southside, we had just gotten married, so like stable income, like
that's
kind of sounded good, and then like, you know, health insurance and stuff, and so that was kind of why he jumped on board with that. And then also we love Southside, we always have, so it made sense. And then from there he kind of transitioned, like he just kind of stepped into his, I think, what God's given him, his ability to lead people and to have such a good listening ear. Like he's a good counselor, and people come to him with all of their questions and concerns. And so I think stepping into that pastor role just kind of put a bow on everything that God
like y'all started
planned.
Seeing like, oh, this is why that happened, and so forth.
Yes.
That's great. You have 2 boys, and then more recently y'all started trying to have another baby, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So in 2023, we were back and forth. Do we want a third? You know, we're already pretty tired.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, I think we do. And so we decided to go for a third. And I would have been fine either way, boy or girl. And but we did like early genetic testing, and came back a girl, and I was like pumped. Like, I mean, those boys stole my heart. I cannot, like, I love them, but there's something about having a girl. Like, I was excited about, you know, prom and wedding dresses and painting fingernails and stuff like that. So yeah, we found out we were having a girl, and I was like so sick with her. Like, I was not that sick with the boys, and with her, I was so sick. So we went in for our 20-week anatomy scan in October of 2023, and we have 2 healthy boys, genetic testing, all of that, and on the little girl. And so we were like, oh yeah, everything's gonna be fine. Like, we haven't had any issues in pregnancy, and this has been smooth sailing. And so actually on our way to our appointment, we had decided we were gonna let Jackson come with us because we didn't expect anything bad, right? And like, he was so excited about a little sister, and so we were like, yeah, you can come with us. And so we left Rhett with our mother-in-law, or my mother-in-law, and we took Jackson with us, and we were driving to the appointment, and I just had this like really like bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. I was like, gosh, this pregnancy anxiety, I mean, that's like every day. I'm like, this feels a little different. I don't know. And then the song Firm Foundation came on the radio, or not on the radio, but on my phone. And I was like, like, I just felt like God was trying to prepare me for something. And I'm like, I don't want to over spiritualize it. I'm just, the song came on, you know? So I just could not shake it. So we got there, and everything was fine. They get us checked in. So at ROB, I don't know who else does this, but they take you to a room, and then it has this really big TV on the wall, so that you can like lay back and see everything. And the 20-week anatomy scan is like super fun. You get to see, they move around a ton and stuff. And so our sweet ultrasound tech, Kylie, so Caleb is sitting over here with Jackson on his lap, and they're looking at the TV, and Kylie gets the wand out. She puts it on my stomach, and as soon as she put it there, I could tell there was something wrong, because like usually immediately hear like a heartbeat, and I didn't hear anything. And so I looked over at her, and I just, like, you hear the words that you just never think you're going to hear, like especially me, I have 2 kids already. And she was like, guys, I'm not seeing a heartbeat. And she tried to say it like real quietly so that Jackson couldn't hear. And so Jackson's over there going, oh, look, she's so cute.
Aww.
I love her. Look at my baby sister. And it took him a minute, but then he could kind of tell there was something wrong. And Caleb couldn't tell at first either until he looked at me, and I just kind of like shook my head, and I was like, so then we're just both crying, and Jackson's like, Mommy, what's wrong? And I was like, it's okay. And the nurses, the office is wonderful, but the nurse came, got Jackson, and took him out to look at the fish. And he didn't want to leave at first, but then, so our doctor came in, and he was like, he goes, well, sometimes these things just happen, and there's no explanation, which is also something you don't ever want to hear, because like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like,
there's not really a closure with it. No. Like, oh, this happened or whatever. Like, you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, this happens. And so he's like, you've got a couple options. And, anyway, they were like, you can go home. You can wait till it happens naturally. You can call us. You can go to the hospital, be induced, just let us know. And so Caleb and I talked about it. I was like, it's this weird mixture of like, I can't imagine staying pregnant with her if she's no longer here, but also I can't imagine already saying goodbye, but ultimately I was like, I don't think I can go home. Like, I can't go home and go to bed and just pretend like this didn't happen and just kind of wait. Like, and I was like, I'm not doing this by myself, So, and maybe I could have also misheard and just been like totally in shock. And maybe they said something different. That was what I heard. And so my brain went, no, that's not happening. And so we decided to go that night, because I was just like, I would rather be where somebody else is watching me than at home. And so we went to the hospital that night to be induced, and we had a great team of nurses and doctors, minus one, but who were super helpful. And like, our family and friends, like, they showed up in ways that I would not even be able to go into how much they did for us. Like, they were God's hands and feet. And I thought about this the other day. I'm like, because sometimes I'll wonder, am I supposed to like bring them food, or am I supposed to like help them with this? And I think anytime you're wondering if you should help somebody, the answer is like yes, because it's just the way that God shows up, like, through these other people. And he did, man. He showed up at the hospital. He showed up. Our family cleaned our whole house while we were gone. Like, they watched our kids. It was they were incredible. And so we were in the hospital for, I don't even remember how many days. I don't think it was that long, but it felt like forever. And it felt like forever to have her, because, birth is horrible. Like, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Birth is like, it's painful and it's traumatic and all this stuff, but like, oh, it's so much worse when you don't get to take a baby home. Like, so I know it was the next day that we ended up having her. I just remember being in so much pain that it felt like it probably wasn't natural to be in that much pain, but I think it's also just shock and like, all that stuff going on too. And so, so we had her, and our midwife, who actually goes to Southside, Jerry Willoughby, was a godsend. And she came back. My sister called her and said that, like, I was freaking out and I didn't want the nurse who was there to be the one to deliver her. And so Jerry came back in the middle of the night and delivered Adeline. And if there was ever anybody's hands I would want Adeline delivered into, it was hers, because as soon as she came out, she was like, oh, she's perfect. She's beautiful. She's got 10 fingers and 10 toes. She's with Jesus. Like, because, Jerry loves the Lord. And so I just knew she was safe in Jerry's hands. And so, and our doctor had told us, hey, when you have her, you need to hold her. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel unnatural, but you will regret it if you don't. And so we did, and I was so out of it on pain meds and medicine that I don't remember much of it. Caleb held her for a couple hours, and she looked just like Jackson. It was crazy, and she looked perfect. Like, there looked like nothing wrong with her. She was tiny. She was like this big, and so then we had to make the decision of, do we leave her there at the hospital and they, run tests on her and they try to figure out what happened, or do we have a funeral for her? And I was like, a funeral feels like a lot for a 20-week-old baby that was never even like on this side of heaven, really. But Caleb's like, you got to do what we have to do. What feels right.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we did end up having a small service for her, and she's actually buried out at my parents' farm.
Oh, wow.
And
that's sweet.
my dad spent a whole week preparing a spot for her. And so it's really sweet. So, anytime we know we can go out, and with the intention of if, once once we get our own plots, like she'll move there. She won't stay there forever, but we didn't want her to be alone somewhere. So, and I think all that to say is like, it's a very weird place to be. Like, what do I do with this baby that was here in my womb, but was never took a breath on this side of heaven? What do I do with the grief? But then also, like, what do I do with her? And
I bet that's a really hard decision to make anyway, because you're having so many emotions in this moment. Like, the thought of anything outside of that was probably very heavy, period. So it's like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know right now. But I'm so glad that y'all did, because I'm sure that, like, really helped. And, like, not helped, but, it gave you, like, some kind of something,
like some closure.
Yes.
And there was purpose to her life.
Yes.
And it wasn't just not just a miscarriage, because I think that a miscarriage gets such a weird, there's so many weird things around it. Like, because you can miscarry at 4 weeks, and then you can miscarry much later on. And the farther along you get, the more it's like stillbirth and stuff. And I think, like, women don't want to talk about it because they're scared that, like, their pain isn't as much as somebody who's lost a baby at 30 weeks, and I think pain is pain and grief is grief. And if it's the worst loss that you've experienced, then it's the worst loss. And you don't have to feel bad about, how bad you feel.
And that is true, because I have heard people talk about, like, miscarriage, and they're like, oh, well, I was only like 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something. And I'm like, don't say only. Like, a miscarriage is still a miscarriage, and that is really hard, because some people, struggle with that, and they don't want to talk about it because they're like, oh, well, it was early or something. It is still, a loss of a piece of your heart that you were, yearning for, so that is really tough. One of the reasons, I heard your story. I was at the church at the time, but barely bought in. And then we had a women's thing with Brittany Tate recently, the Living Truth Collective night, and you got up and spoke, and it was just so impactful and powerful the way that you spoke. And I was like, I really want to shine some light on you and Adeline's story and just this. And so it's really hard too, because your husband is a pastor, and you had a strong upbringing in church. So it's like, did you have resentment towards God? Right.
Oh, yes. So, and I think, and especially being a pastor's wife, which I never thought I would be, is like, there's a lot of pressure to have all the answers and to trust God no matter what. And I did not. I will be honest. In that hospital room, I was like, what are you doing? Where are you at? And you could have fixed this, and you chose not to. And I know, because I was raised as a Christian home, very strong Christian parents, and I have known Jesus my whole life, and I know all of the truths of the Bible. And it didn't help me in that moment. It did eventually, but in the moment, the enemy was trying to convince me that all these truths I knew about God weren't real, because how could they be if he would take my daughter? And it has taken, I would say it is still taking, it's been, a year and a half, almost, maybe a year and 4 months. And it's been a very dark valley of, all of these things that that you've grown up hearing, like, trust God no matter what. God is good. God loves you. God has a purpose, and he has a good plan for your life. And I did not feel like any of those things were true. And I questioned every day why he would take her away. And Caleb he tried to be like, God didn't take her, sin into the world, and then bad things happen. And, free will and all those things that
Yeah.
about God and about scripture, but it doesn't help when I should be holding a baby and I'm
Yeah.
not. And I think I struggled with struggling because I'm a pastor's wife. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to have it all together, and I'm supposed to know the answers, and I'm not supposed to doubt God or wonder if he's good or wonder if what he says is true. But, it took a while, and I leaned on the faith of those around me for a really long time because I didn't have it anymore of my own. And I leaned on it long enough. I would say I leaned on it as long as God would let me before he kind of gently nudged me towards, hey, like, you have to make a choice if you want to look for me or not. And I was like, okay, sure, I can do that. I can look for you. So I started kind of trying to look for him in the answers to my problems. Or the answers to my concerns and my worries and my sadness. So maybe it was in a book about losing a child, or maybe it was in a devotional about being sad, or maybe it was in, something else. I very, very clearly, I heard God tell me, and not so many words, and it was very gentle. It was like, hey, you are looking for you. You're not looking for me.
Yeah.
And it was like, the Bible says, like, if you seek me, you will find me. But I wasn't seeking him.
Yeah.
I was seeking me in the Bible. Like, where can I find me?
Where can I find this answer to this that I'm looking for? And I've had that happen to me too, because I was doing a fast once, and I was reading. He's like, you're not trying to get to know me. Yeah. You're not trying to really have a relationship with me. Like, you're just looking for that one answer, and that's it. And I'm like, oh,
okay.
You know what? Yeah. You're actually right.
Yeah. So I felt like God telling me, hey, like, look for me. And you're not looking for, like, my attributes, my promises, what's true about me, God. You're only looking for the answers to your problems. So instead, search the Bible for what is true about me, about God. And so I got two Bible studies, one on the attributes of God and one on the promises of God, because I needed something that would show me where to look for the promises of God and stuff. So, and the attributes of him. And so I started doing that. And honestly, I started that right before the women's event in October. And I have to say that it's been like 3 months of searching the Bible for who God is. And I have not felt this much peace in my life in a long time. Definitely not since Adeline. And these past like 2 months of just searching out who is God, and not who is God for me, but who is God, period, has brought me so much peace, because where there are some things that seem like they don't go together, like God is just and God is love, they do go together. And the Bible says, like, the more you seek me, the more you will find me. And I have found that to be true, especially in these past few months. And I think I was definitely seeking something after Adeline, and it was him in a different way.
Yeah.
But when
you didn't know at that point what you were seeking or what you were looking for, but now know your spirit was yearning for that.
Exactly. And I didn't know. And God is so patient and so gentle. And I don't think he expected me to be searching for him like I have been these past 3 months right after Adeline.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, like, especially the Psalms, like David's groaning and his lamenting and his sadness over so many bad things in his life, God didn't, like, force him out of those lamenting moments. He kind of let him have them, and I think that he does that for us too. Like, however long you need to lament and groan and grieve and search for him in not the best way, but still kind of search for him, I think he lets you do it, and then, like he did for me, the gentle nudging of, look for me. And I would say where I felt like the valley was never ending, it has seemed a little bit like I'm coming up on the other side. And, but I look back on the valley and I'm like, still in it, but kind of getting on the other side. Like, I learned a whole lot more then than I ever thought I would. Like, I know, like, you hear, like, God works all things together for his good, and he has a plan, and you're going to come out of this with some kind of silver lining. I'm like, okay.
There's no way.
Right.
Yeah.
You tell me that again and
Yeah.
I might punch you. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I don't care if I'm a pastor's wife or not.
exactly.
You're going to get decked.
I'm like, you cannot tell me that right now. Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
hear that. But looking back right now, I can see where God showed up and where his mercy was so evident and how much I have learned about who he is. And what's funny is that while I was searching for who he was for me, I wasn't finding that. But since I've been searching for just him, I have found out who he is also for me. And I think the biggest thing that I learned, and Caleb would say it too, and I mean, this is as much his story as mine, and he hurt like just as much as I did.
Yeah.
And but that I think the biggest thing I learned was that life is hard and it is not going to change. Like, life is going to be hard until we go to heaven.
Yep.
But life is so much harder if you don't have Jesus. And having Jesus doesn't guarantee that your life isn't going to be hard. And I think in some ways I kind of thought that because I grew up in a Christian house and kind of did everything right, did everything by the book. So I should have this good life, right? But I'm not guaranteed that. Nobody is. And so, and I'm fooling myself to think that I have control over anything in my life, and so but it's so much harder if we don't have Jesus, if we choose not to include him in our life.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that I hear a lot, is like, if I didn't have Jesus, I don't know how I would have made it through this. And then with you saying in the last few months where you're constantly seeking him and actually trying to find out who he is, as a God and what all he promises us and stuff. And you're like, you have so much peace now.
Yeah.
And that's so many times that when we're struggling, we don't know where to turn, but if we just start looking for him,
right,
he's going to give us peace. He's the Prince of Peace. And even when we feel like there's no way out of this valley, like, we might still be in the valley, but maybe we're walking a little peacefully, in the valley.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there's been many times, in my life where I'm like, I feel like I'm in a storm. Like, wind isn't going to let up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I know it's going to get better because I have Jesus.
Exactly.
So that's always just so big. And so when you said, right after it happens, you're struggling and stuff, before the women's event, that's when you kind of started to seek him and stuff like that. So before that, did you have any quiet time with him at all? Were you praying at all? Or was it like when you prayed or when you talked to him, it was just like anger, basically?
I think it was a lot of going through the motions of still prayed with my kids, prayed, said the blessing. And then, when I did pray, it was a lot of questions and a lot of, I would never say that I like yelled towards heaven. I'm not really a yeller though. Yeah. So like other people probably
just with how like soft spoken and just like easygoing you are, I'm like, girl, I don't think you were yelling.
I'm not a yeller. But so I never really got like vocal, I guess, about that like in my heart, it was a whole lot of and I never hated God because I knew there's that verse that talks about where else would I go? You have the words of life. And I knew that like deep down in my soul, I knew there is nowhere else I could go that's going to give me any answers to these questions. And I know that he has the answers to these questions. I just was so mad that I even had to ask them. Like, how am I even in this spot where these are the questions I'm asking you? Yeah. Why am I even having to ask you, why do I have to explain to my 4-year-old why his sister didn't have a heartbeat? Like, how many times Jackson asked me, well, why didn't she have a heartbeat? And why is she in heaven? Why don't I have a sister? And even just like 2 days ago, he's like, oh, Adeline didn't have a heartbeat, right? I'm like, yep. He just likes to, and so I think it was like just in my heart, a feeling of unsettled, and where God gave us peace that passes understanding in the hospital, for sure. But from there, it was a whole lot of questions and an unsettled spirit, if I could say it like that without sounding too, just feeling like my whole world got put upside down. And here I was by myself trying to write it, and at no point was I ever by myself. It just felt like I was. And I think the enemy really tries to make sure you feel alone. And
I guess that was another question.
Mhm.
Like, how was it with you and Caleb? Like, did
Mm.
y'all lean on each other during this time, or it kind of at one time it was like y'all were dealing separately?
You
I
know,
guess.
it was funny because the first thing he thought of in the hospital, you know, after she was born, and was he was worried about us. Like he had heard that, you know, couples that go through this don't make it.
Yeah.
And so I said, we're gonna be fine. Like, you know, we're gonna be fine. You just need to trust God. We're gonna be fine. I'm not worried about us. Like, but mostly my brain wasn't even thinking about that. And so I went and saw my counselor a couple weeks later, and I was talking to her about Adeline and everything that happened. And I said, you know, my husband is concerned, you know, that we're not going to be okay. And she said, well, let me ask you this. She said, how did he show up for you? Or what were your thoughts about him right after it happened? And I said, it reminded me why I married him. And she was like, then that's all you needed to know. Like, if you know, if you came out of it and you're like, oh, I married him for a reason.
Yeah.
And I did. Man, we grieved together and we grieved just as hard. And he was there for me, but he also didn't like pat me on the back and say like, there, get over it. You know, he was just as sad as I was. And then I think in the months after that, it's been a little bit of grieving separately and figuring out our own issues with the situation and our own questions to God. And his have been different than mine, and his struggles have been different. But they've been, you know, both having questions. But in the beginning, we grieved together. Yeah. And which
now you're just kind of like, you're figuring it out.
Yeah. Yeah. How to live in a world where this happened to us. And I say that knowing that, and I mean, you had Jordan on, and I can't imagine her pain, right? Yeah. Like I cried. I don't even know Jordan, but I cried after I found out what happened. And I just can't imagine. And so I say this knowing that there are women everywhere who have had stillbirths and have lost babies at 38 weeks. And whether you've lost a baby at 38 weeks or 8 weeks or 20 weeks like us, you lost a baby. And you should talk about it. It helps. And even though it doesn't feel like it's going to, and there's some shame, like I did something wrong, you know, like maybe I drank too much coffee or maybe I did this and that was what caused it. And, you know, the doctors tell you didn't do anything, you couldn't have done anything, but you still feel that like there was something I did. And so I think it was women who've had a miscarriage. I mean, my mom had a miscarriage at about 20 weeks as well. And then my sister lost one of her twin boys the same year, early in 2023. Oh, wow. And so it's very common, and I think people just don't want to talk about it.
One of the questions that I was kind of thinking of is like when you were in these moments of confusion and despair and just like didn't know what all was going on, and people don't know what to say a lot of the time, you know, that you're going on. Is there something that someone actually said to you that was actually comforting and that you held on to, or is that just something like how do you say, like, how do you comfort someone in that, basically?
It's a good question. And I think everybody's different, which is what makes it hard, right? Yeah. And honestly, I was sitting here trying to think about it. For me, I don't really remember what people said. I remember people that came. I remember the people that brought me a book about losing a baby, even if I didn't read the whole thing. I remember the people that brought dinner. I remember the people that came and played with my kids. If they said something, I don't remember what it was. Yeah. You know, it
was just being there.
It was the being there, honestly. And because I think, and I definitely have a tendency to like introvert and like, I'm just gonna stay over here. But the people that showed up and the people that continue to show up months later, like, that made all the difference because it kept me from internalizing everything. And I saw people, and it made me realize I'm not alone. Yeah. Like, these people care. And I'm not saying that they didn't say nice things, and they probably did. Yeah. And nobody said anything that made me think to myself, you can't say that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And but it was the people that were there, you know, and this just showing up. Even if you feel like this is going to be weird, I shouldn't do this. But if you feel like God's telling you to do it, just do it. Yeah. Because there's a reason for it. And I remember my mom specifically, I was so terrified in the hospital because one of my doctors had said, He was trying to calm me down, but it didn't really work.
Yeah.
He was like, you might just, it's going to be fine. You might just sneeze and she'll come out. I'm like, I'm sorry. What? And I was like, I looked at my mom because my mom and my husband were in the hospital with me. And I was like, Mom, what did he just say? And she was like, I don't think he meant it. And, you know, she's like trying to calm me down, right? And I was like, I am not going to be able to sleep because what if something happens in my sleep, you know? And then your brain, you're just anxiety just is off the charts. So my mom just stayed up all night, and she sat next to the bed. And she didn't go to sleep. That way, she was like, I'm going to be awake just in case something happens. I'll be the only one here that's awake. You go to sleep. And so she stayed up with me all night. And I remember in my, like, my delusioned, medicated state, laying there. And I knew it was hard for her because she'd been through the same thing, right? She'd had, and hers was even more traumatic. And I remember telling her, I don't want to go to sleep because I only have a little bit longer with her. And if I go to sleep, I'm going to miss out on these moments. But then I remember falling asleep, and I remember her holding my hand, but I could feel her shaking like she was sobbing next to me without trying to wake me up. Because it was so hard for her too. Because she'd also, and I told her, I said, I knew I could look at you and say, she made it through. Yeah. And she's here, and she still loves Jesus. And I was like, if you wondered whether or not what you went through mattered, if it mattered for anything, it matters for right now. Wow. And so I don't know if if any of your listeners have been through miscarriage, and you might never know if what you went through has any purpose other than these things happen, but you'll never know if you touch somebody's life in a way that was life-changing for them, like my mom.
Yeah, because, that's one of the things that you've said on here, is talk about it. And because people don't talk about this stuff very much, and then the person receiving the conversation, they don't really know how to talk about it either. So it's always just like do you say something? Do you not? You know, and it does help people because you just said you know that your mom made it through and still loves Jesus and has walked faithfully with him and everything else, and so you see that hope.
Yes,
you have hope because you've seen someone else that dealt with something similar to you, because no situation is similar, none. Right. But at the same time, you see that there is light at the end of a tunnel. That when you don't know where to go, what to do, or anything, you do see that there's hope. And so,
and that has been my mom's whole thing. For as long as I can remember, her life verse was Christ in me, the hope of glory. And that no matter what, you have the hope of Jesus, and like, the hope of seeing Adeline again in heaven. Yeah. And, and that helps. It sometimes doesn't help right now because heaven is so far away, right? But I can imagine, like I asked Jerry Willoughby, the midwife, I said, how do people do this who don't love Jesus? She was like, they don't do it well. She's like, this is hard. She's like, this is the hardest thing you've ever experienced. She said, I have seen people who have experienced this and they don't know Jesus. And she said, it is heartbreaking because they have zero hope of ever seeing that child take a breath, and I do. And I know that Adeline is safe in heaven, and she's with the baby my mom lost, and the boy my sister lost, and the countless other babies that women have lost. And that is the beauty of Jesus and the hope that he brings. And it doesn't come as soon as we would like sometimes, but we know it's there. It does help get through the really, really dark moments. And I can't imagine doing this life without that hope of Jesus. Yeah.
I guess one of the last things while we begin to wrap up would be you've gave lots of advice, talking about it, seeking God, everything else. Do you have anything else that has helped you in this journey? Or that you would, give advice to? Anything.
Yeah. I think give yourself, if you have been through a miscarriage recently or many years ago, it's going to hurt at the most random times. Like, you're going to think you're fine, and you're just going to start crying in the car rider line. And that's fine. And it's frustrating, and it's annoying because you don't want to be crying in the car rider line. But it's going to happen. Or you're going to see a little girl walk by, and it would have been the age of your daughter. And it's going to make you cry, and that's fine. Give yourself much grace. Be patient with people who don't know what they should say or if they should say anything. And because honestly, I don't ever know what to say either.
Yeah.
And so, so just, kind of take it day by day and make sure you're around people. And I am speaking to the choir here.
Yeah.
Because I am very introverted, which is funny because I'm married to Caleb, who is the complete opposite.
Complete opposite.
And so, so I would stay home all day. But I think God designs us for community. And one thing that came out of losing Adeline was working with Brittany on the Living Truth Collective on the events for women. She included me in that, and it helped a lot. And I didn't want to do it, I'm going to be honest, because it was outside of my comfort zone too, because I helped with the first one, and I share my testimony at the second one. I was like, outside of my comfort zone to be anywhere near the spotlight. And so, but I felt like God was telling me beginning of 2024, when the church did a song, I've witnessed it, and they did this whole thing about what God did in the year past and what they expect God to do in the future. And I just felt like God had a huge plan for this coming up year. And it didn't include a baby, which is what I thought. But it did include big things. And in that year, I helped with those 2 women's events and shared my testimony. And whether that's what God meant or not, it still helped to be a part of a community. Yeah. Whether you want to be a part of a community or not, it's super important to be around people and let them help you through it. They want to, And
I think that really goes to anybody,
Yeah.
Because we need to have community and we need to be around people that are going to push us closer to Jesus and not just let us wallow or sit and I don't mean that, in an ugly way at all. I'm just saying, like, we need someone that's going to push us out of comfort zones and get us closer to Jesus.
Exactly.
Because we all go through hard things. We all go through things that we will isolate ourselves because we don't know where to turn. Yeah. And we need to be turning to a community that ultimately is going to push us to Jesus.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So get out there and do something even if you don't want to. Yeah. And then I would say,
because it could be the best decision you ever made.
Yeah. And you could make friends. Like, I didn't hang out with Brittany and Lacey before then, and now I do. Yeah. And it's great. And they're both very strong women who love Jesus. And it is super helpful to see their faith and also their realness. Like, they're very real about, life and stuff. So, so definitely that. And then I would also say, like, this is kind of like not in the faith kind of realm, but, to like take care of yourself. So, if you haven't been exercising, start doing something, or try to eat a little bit better, do something that helps you feel better. Yeah. Whether, like, if you like going for walks, then go for a walk. Yeah. And it's not bad, because I think as a mom, sometimes you feel guilty doing things for yourself because you're supposed to be doing things for everybody else, but it's not a bad thing, and it's good. It helps you, stay grounded. And, so if you prioritize your health in a way that works for you and don't try to, like, go crazy, right? And especially if you just had a miscarriage, like, don't. But I mean, in the past like 9 months or so, I've been working on trying to get a little bit healthier, and it's helped a lot on just like mental function,
mentally,
like,
spiritually, physically, all
the things. So, and they say like exercise is good for all the things, and it really is. It's hard to do. I don't do it perfectly. I'm just saying, like, if you're like on the fence about, I don't know if I should, like, just move your body once a day, and you feel better.
When I was really depressed one year, my mom always gave me, like, she's like, I don't care. She cares that I'm depressed, right? But she was like, I don't care what you do, but just get up. Yeah. Just get up, put your clothes on, feel good about yourself. Like, if you feel pretty when you do your makeup, do that. Like, do those little things that make you have a little bit more confidence. You start those little things, and it snowballs. I talk about snowballing on here into bigger sin, but it also snowballs into more positive results, So.
And no, it's true. It's true. And then I think too, like, the message at church has been about anxiety and worry, and what you fill your mind with is what you think about, right? So if you fill your mind with anxious thoughts, then you're going to be anxious. Yeah. So it helps to fill your mind with what's true. So however you like to do that, if you like to listen to the Bible, or if you like to listen to a podcast about the Bible or something, it just helps to have that playing. Yep. And it helps fill your mind when you don't feel like filling it yourself. Just let it play in the background. So
that's great. That's good. All right. Well, do you have anything else, girl?
Oh, I don't think so. Thanks for having me.
Yes, this has
And-
been great. This has been awesome. I'm so glad that you got to come share
Yeah.
your story, and I know that it's going to help people, and it's going to be used in a mighty way to glorify Him, and that's
I
the
hope
most
so.
important thing. So,
I hope so.
yes. All right, guys. Well, this has been great. We just pray that if you're going through anything like this, that you seek Him ultimately. You seek a community, and you just try to reach out and just keep putting that foot in front of the other. Keep moving forward. So stay tuned, stay blessed, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.